The ship moved slowly toward the massive station that floated in the darkness of space. Ambassador Katie Morrison stood at the window and watched as Nexus Prime grew larger with each passing minute. The station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It stretched across the void like a metal flower, with lights blinking from 1,000 windows. Katie took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. After years of work and sacrifice, Earth had finally built ships that could travel faster than light. They had reached out to the stars and found that they were not alone. The galaxy was full of life, and at the center of it all was the Galactic Concord. 84 species working together under one banner. Today, humanity would ask to join them. Admiral Daniel Carter walked up beside her. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his whole life dreaming of this moment. "Are you ready?" he asked. Katie nodded, but her hands were shaking. "I have practiced my speech 100 times. I know what to say. I just hope they listen." The ship docked with a gentle thud. The doors opened, and Katie stepped into a world she had only seen in pictures. The station was filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated through the air or crawled along the walls. They all stopped to stare at the small group of humans walking through the corridor. Katie felt their eyes on her. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. A few looked at her with something that felt like disgust. A tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms approached them. Its voice was smooth and cold. "I am Counselor Veth. I will take you to the council chamber. Please follow me and do not touch anything." They walked for what felt like hours through winding hallways and across floating bridges. Finally, they reached a massive door that slid open to reveal a room so large that Katie could not see the other side. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in floating seats, arranged in a circle around a central platform. Katie stepped onto the platform. The lights dimmed and every eye turned to her. "Members of the Galactic Concord," she began, her voice steady despite her fear. "I am Katie Morrison, and I speak for the people of Earth. We come to you not as conquerors, but as neighbors. We have watched the stars our whole lives, wondering if anyone was out there. Now we know the answer. We are not alone, and we do not wish to be strangers." She spoke for nearly an hour. She told them about Earth's history, about the wars humanity had fought, and the peace they had built. She showed them images of human art and music. She explained how humans had learned from their mistakes and grown into something better. When she finished, there was silence. The council members looked at each other, whispering in languages Katie could not understand. High Arbiter Velshan rose from his seat. He was an ancient creature with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. He was the leader of the Kethrani, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and his word carried great weight. "We have listened to your words, Ambassador," he said. "The council will now deliberate. You will have our answer in 3 days." Katie and her team were taken to a small room to wait. 3 days passed slowly. They ate strange food and slept on uncomfortable beds. They talked about what the council might decide and tried not to think about what would happen if they said no. On the 3rd day, they were brought back to the chamber. The room was even more crowded than before. Katie could feel the tension in the air like a heavy blanket pressing down on her chest. High Arbiter Velshan stood once more. His face showed no emotion as he spoke. "The council has reached a decision. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, we have determined that humanity is not suitable for membership in the Galactic Concord." Katie felt the words hit her like a punch to the stomach. "Your species is too aggressive," Velshan continued. "Your history is soaked in blood. You fight among yourselves with a brutality that disturbs us. Furthermore, your planet is classified as a death world. The conditions that created your species have made you dangerous. Your strength, Your endurance, your persistence, these traits make you unpredictable. We cannot allow such a species to move freely among the stars. Katie stepped forward. Please, you must understand. We have changed. We are not the same people who fought those wars. We have learned. We have grown. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Velshan shook his head slowly. The decision is final. Earth is permanently barred from the Galactic Concord. Your species is forbidden from expanding beyond your solar system. Any attempt to do so will be seen as an act of aggression and will be dealt with accordingly. Admiral Carter clenched his fists at his side. Katie could see the anger burning in his eyes, but he said nothing. There was nothing to say as they walked back to their ship. Some aliens watched them with pity. A small creature with large eyes reached out and touched Katie's hand gently before scurrying away, but most simply stared with cold satisfaction, as if a dangerous animal had finally been put in its cage. The journey home was quiet. Katie sat alone in her quarters and stared at the stars passing by the window. She had failed. Humanity had reached out to the galaxy, and the galaxy had slammed the door in their face. When they arrived at Earth, Chancellor Marcus Webb was waiting for them. He was an older man with white hair and a face that had seen too many hard decisions. He listened as Katie gave her report, his expression growing darker with each word. That night, Webb called an emergency session of the United Earth government. Leaders from every nation gathered to hear the news. When Katie finished speaking, the room erupted in angry voices. Some called for war. Others called for acceptance. The argument went on for hours. Finally, Chancellor Webb raised his hand for silence. The room grew quiet as he stood and walked to the podium. He looked out at the assembled leaders, his eyes filled with a fire that Katie had never seen before. They have judged us unworthy, he said, his voice calm but firm. They have drawn a line around our solar system and called it a cage. They have looked at everything we are and everything we could become, and they have decided that we are nothing more than dangerous animals to be contained. He paused, letting his words sink in. So let me ask you all one question. Do we accept this? Do we bow our heads and stay in our cage like good little prisoners? Or do we prove them wrong? The room was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the leaders began to nod. Katie felt something stir in her chest. It was not hope exactly. It was something harder. Something fiercer. It was determination. 10 years had passed since the rejection. On the surface, Earth seemed quiet. The people went about their lives. They worked and played and raised their children. They looked up at the stars sometimes and wondered what was out there, but they did not speak of it often. The pain of rejection had faded into a dull ache that most people tried to ignore. The Galactic Concord watched Earth carefully at first. They sent patrol ships to circle the solar system and make sure the humans stayed where they belonged. But as the years went by and nothing happened, they grew bored. The patrols became less frequent. The galaxy forgot about the little blue planet and its dangerous people. That was exactly what humanity wanted. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, in a facility that did not officially exist, Dr. Lauren Hayes stood before a massive window and smiled. On the other side of the glass was a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was sleek and powerful, with smooth lines that seemed to cut through space, even while standing still. The name painted on its hull read, Defiance. "She is beautiful," said a voice behind her. Lauren turned to see Director Megan Price walking toward her. Megan was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped working. She had built this entire operation from nothing, turning abandoned mines and forgotten bases into the greatest secret in human history. "She is more than beautiful," Lauren said. "She is everything we have worked for. Faster engines than anything the Concorde has. weapons that can punch through their shields, and armor strong enough to take a beating and keep fighting. Megan nodded slowly. How many ships do we have now? 200. All of them ready. All of them waiting. Project Avalon had begun in secret just months after the rejection. Chancellor Webb had gathered the brightest minds on Earth and given them a simple mission: build a fleet that could stand against the galaxy. They had started with nothing but determination and anger. But over 10 years, they had created something amazing. In the early days, they worked with whatever they could find. A derelict alien ship had crashed on Mars decades ago, and they took it apart piece by piece, learning its secrets. Black market traders brought them technology stolen from a dozen worlds. Human engineers studied everything and then made it better. Captain Nathan Cole walked into the observation room, still wearing his flight suit. He was younger than most of the others, with dark hair and a confident smile. He had been the first pilot to fly the new ships, pushing them to their limits in tests that no one else would dare attempt. Just finished another run, he said. The new fighters are incredible. They can outrun anything the Concorde has in their patrol fleet. Lauren felt a swell of pride. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology in this fleet was the result of human hands and human minds. They had taken the scraps the galaxy threw away and built something magnificent. Admiral Daniel Carter entered the room. He was older now, his hair completely white and his face lined with years of stress and hope. But his eyes still burned with the same fire they had held on that day when humanity was cast out. "We have a problem," he said. Quietly, everyone turned to look at him. "I just received a report from our listening posts. A Concorde patrol ship crossed into the restricted zone near Mars. They were only there for a few minutes, but their sensors might have picked up something." Megan frowned. "How much could they have seen?" "Hard to say. But if they detected the energy signatures from the shipyard, they will know something is wrong." The room fell silent. 10 years of work, 10 years of hiding, and now it might all come crashing down because of one unlucky patrol. Carter walked to the window and looked out at the Defiance. "We always knew this day would come. We cannot hide forever. The question is whether we are ready." Lauren stepped up beside him. "The fleet is ready. The ships are ready. The crews have been training for years. But are we ready?" Carter asked. "Not the ships. Us. Are we ready to face the entire galaxy?" It was a question that had kept him awake many nights. They had built this armada to defend themselves, to ensure that no one could ever cage humanity again. But what would happen when they revealed it? Would the Concorde see it as a threat and attack? Would other species fear them even more? Megan joined them at the window. "Daniel, we have discussed this 1,000 times. We did not build this fleet to conquer anyone. We built it so that we could never be conquered. So that we could stand as equals, not as prisoners." "I know," Carter said softly. "But I remember the way they looked at us. Like we were monsters. Like we were something to be feared and controlled. When they see what we have built, that fear will only grow." Nathan spoke up from behind them. "Let it grow. Let them see what happens when you corner a species and tell them they are worthless. We did not start this fight. They did. They looked at everything humanity is and decided we were not good enough. Well, now they get to see what we can do when we put our minds to something." Carter turned to face the young pilot. "You sound like Chancellor Webb. Is that a bad thing?" Carter allowed himself a small smile. No, it is not. They spent the next few hours reviewing their plans. If the Concorde had detected them, a response would come soon. They needed to be ready. In the weeks that followed, the hidden bases buzzed with activity. Ships were moved into position. Crews were given their final assignments. Everything that had been built in shadow was prepared to step into the light. Then the message came. A Concorde fleet had been dispatched. 40 warships, each one armed with enough firepower to level a city. Their mission was simple: disarm the humans and arrest their leaders. The galaxy had decided that Earth needed to be taught a lesson. Chancellor Webb, now elderly and frail, addressed the people of Earth one final time. His image appeared on every screen across the planet. "My fellow humans," he said, his voice weaker than it had been, but still filled with strength. "For 10 years, we have kept a secret. For 10 years, we have worked and built and prepared. Today, that secret ends." Behind him, the screen showed the hidden fleet emerging from its hiding places. 200 ships rising from beneath moons and asteroids, forming up in perfect formation around their home. "They are coming to put us back in our cage," Webb continued. "They believe we are still the helpless species they rejected 10 years ago. They are wrong. We have changed. We have grown. And now, we will show them what humanity can do." Around the world, people stopped what they were doing and watched. Some cried. Some cheered. But all of them felt something that had been missing for a very long time. Pride. The Defiance led the fleet into position. On its bridge, Admiral Carter looked out at the stars and took a deep breath. "They called us monsters," he said quietly. "Today, we show them what monsters can build." The Concorde fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. High Commander Zelthus stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched as his sensors painted a picture of what lay ahead. What he saw made him grip the railing until his knuckles turned pale. "This is not possible," he whispered. His tactical officer looked up from her console. "Sir, I am counting 200 ships, all of them armed. All of them in defensive formation around the third planet." Zelthus had been told this would be easy. The Council had assured him that Earth was still primitive, still weak. They had sent 40 ships because they thought it would be more than enough to crush any resistance. Now he understood that they had been terribly wrong. How did they build this? He asked, though he did not expect an answer. "We have been watching them for 10 years. Our patrols found nothing." The answer was simple, though Zelthus could not know it. Humans were very good at hiding things they did not want found. They had learned that skill through thousands of years of war against each other. Now they used it against the stars, on the bridge of the Defiance. Lieutenant Ashley Torres watched the enemy fleet on her screen. She was young, barely 25 years old, and this was her first real assignment. Her job was communications, which meant she would be the voice of humanity if things turned bad. Admiral Carter stood at the center of the bridge, calm as always. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. The fear that had gripped him earlier was gone now, replaced by a cold clarity. "Open a channel," he ordered. Ashley's fingers flew across her console. "Channel open, sir." Carter stepped forward. His image was being broadcast not just to the Concorde fleet, but to every ship in his armada and every screen on Earth. "This is Admiral Daniel Carter of the United Earth Fleet. You have entered our space without permission. State your intentions." There was a pause before Zelthus appeared on the screen. The alien commander tried to hide his shock, but Carter could see it in his eyes. "Admiral Carter," Zelthus said, his voice stiff and formal. "By order of the Galactic Concorde, you are commanded to stand down immediately. Your fleet will power down its weapons and prepare for inspection. Your leaders will surrender themselves for trial. Earth has violated the terms of its restriction and must face consequences." Carter did not blink. "And if we refuse, then you will be destroyed." The bridge was silent. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what their admiral would do. Carter took a slow breath. "Commander Zelthus, I want you to look at your sensors. Look at what we have built. You came here with 40 ships because you thought we were helpless. You thought we would bow our heads and accept whatever punishment you decided to give us. But we are not the same species you rejected 10 years ago. He paused, letting his words sink in. We do not want war. We never did. We simply want to be free. Free to explore the stars. Free to trade and talk and learn alongside every other species in the galaxy. You denied us that right. You called us monsters and locked us in a cage. So we built the keys to let ourselves out. Zelphus leaned forward. You cannot win this fight, Admiral. Even if you defeat us here, the Concord will send more ships. 100 ships. 1,000. You cannot stand against the entire galaxy. Maybe not, Carter admitted. But we can stand against you. And I promise you this. If you attack us, we will fight back with everything we have. Not because we want to hurt you, but because we refuse to be slaves. We refuse to accept that we are lesser beings who deserve to be controlled. Every human who has ever lived has dreamed of the stars. You do not have the right to take that dream away from us. Ambassador Ryan Mitchell stepped forward. He was younger than Katie Morrison had been, but he carried the same fire in his heart. Commander, I'm asking you to consider what you are about to do. We have 200 ships, each one crewed by people who have spent their whole lives being told they were not good enough. They will not surrender. They will not run. If you fire on us, they will fight until there is nothing left. Zelphus was quiet for a long moment. Carter could see the doubt in his eyes. The Concord commander was not a fool. He knew that even if he won this battle, the cost would be terrible. I have my orders, Zelphus finally said. The Council has spoken. The Council was wrong about us 10 years ago, Mitchell replied. They are wrong about us now. And somewhere deep in your heart, I think you know that. The channel went silent. Both fleets hung in space, waiting for someone to make the first move. On Earth, billions of people watched their screens and held their breath. Families gathered together, holding hands and praying to whatever gods they believed in. Children asked their parents what was happening, and parents did their best to explain without scaring them. In the hidden bases where the fleet had been built, the engineers and workers who had made all this possible stood and watched. They had poured 10 years of their lives into these ships. Now they would find out if their work had been enough. Dr. Lauren Hayes stood alone in the empty shipyard, looking at the massive window where the Defiance had once rested. She thought about all the late nights and early mornings, all the problems they had solved and the impossible deadlines they had met. She thought about her team, the brilliant men and women who had refused to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. Come on, she whispered to the darkness. Show them what we made. Back on the Defiance, Ashley Torres received a new transmission. Her face went pale as she read it. Admiral, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The Concord fleet just received new orders from the Council. Carter turned to face her. What did they say? Ashley swallowed hard. They have been ordered to destroy our fleet. They are to make an example of Earth. The bridge fell silent. Every officer looked at their admiral, waiting for guidance. Carter closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with something hard and unbreakable. All hands to battle stations, he said calmly. Tell the fleet to prepare for combat. The order spread through the human armada like wildfire. 200 ships powered up their weapons and raised their shields. Pilots climbed into their fighters and prepared to launch. Everyone knew what was coming. Ashley opened a channel to the entire fleet. Carter's voice echoed through every ship as he gave his final order before the storm. They have decided to destroy us. They believe fear and violence can break us. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Today we fight not for conquest, not for revenge, but for the right to exist. Every one of you knows why we are here. Every one of you has dreamed of this moment. Now show them what humans can do. Across the fleet, Men and women straightened their backs and hardened their hearts. They were afraid, but they were ready. The first shot was fired at exactly 14:32 Earth Standard Time. A beam of blue light lanced across the darkness toward the human fleet. The Battle of Seoul had begun. The first shot missed. It streaked past the Defiance and vanished into the darkness of space. But the second shot hit, and the third, and suddenly the void was filled with fire. Admiral Carter gripped his command chair as the ship rocked from an impact. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, but the shields held. Human engineering had been put to the test, and it was not failing. "Return fire," Carter ordered. "All batteries, target their lead ships." The Defiance answered with a roar of its own weapons. Beams of golden light cut through space and slammed into the Concorde flagship. The alien shields flickered, but did not fall. Across the battlefield, 200 human ships engaged 40 alien vessels. The numbers were in humanity's favor, but the Concorde ships were larger and more powerful. Each one had been built by species with thousands of years of experience in space warfare. This would not be an easy fight. Captain Nathan Cole led his squadron of fighters into the chaos. His voice crackled over the radio, calm and confident despite the destruction around him. "All fighters stay tight. We are going for their command ship. Follow my lead and do not break formation until I give the order." 20 small craft screamed through the battle, dodging enemy fire and slipping between larger ships. Cole pushed his fighter to its limits, feeling the engine strain as he demanded more speed. The Concorde ships tried to adjust their tactics, but something was wrong. Their formations kept falling apart. Their coordinated strikes kept missing by just a little. They could not predict what the humans would do next. That was because humans did not fight like anyone else in the galaxy. Other species had rules for space combat. They followed patterns that had been perfected over centuries. Every move had a counter. Every strategy had a response. It was almost like a dance, elegant and predictable. Humans fought dirty. They took risks that no sane commander would consider. They sacrificed position for speed, traded safety for surprise. They changed tactics in the middle of a maneuver, adapting to the chaos instead of trying to control it. High Commander Zelthus watched his tactical display with growing horror. 3 of his ships were already disabled. 2 more were retreating with heavy damage. The humans were everywhere at once, striking from. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Seoul. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Ambassador Ryan Mitchell stood at the window of his office on the station called New Dawn. It was humanity's first permanent outpost beyond the solar system, built in neutral space where anyone was welcome. Ships from a dozen different species drifted past the window, their lights blinking like stars against the darkness. They had won the battle, but they had not won it through destruction. When High Commander Zelthus had surrendered, Admiral Carter had done something that shocked the entire galaxy. He had ordered his ships to stop firing immediately. He had sent medical teams to help the wounded enemy crews. He had released every prisoner without conditions. The Concorde had expected monsters. They had found something else entirely. Mitchell turned away from the window as his assistant entered the room. "Sir, High Arbiter Velshan has arrived. He's waiting in the meeting room." Mitchell nodded slowly. This was a meeting he had been expecting for months. The same alien who had rejected humanity 10 years ago was now coming to him, seeking answers. He walked through the corridors of the station, passing humans and aliens working side by side. A Veth engineer was teaching a human technician how to repair a shield generator. A group of children from 3 different species played together in a common area, laughing at a game that had no name yet. This was the Open Alliance. It had started as an idea whispered in the days after the battle, and now it was real. Any species rejected or mistreated by the Concord was welcome here. Any world that wanted to trade fairly and live in peace could join. 12 species had already signed the charter, including 3 former members of the Concord itself. Mitchell entered the meeting room and found Velshan sitting alone at a long table. The old alien looked smaller than Mitchell remembered. The weight of what had happened seemed to press down on his thin shoulders. "Hi, Arbiter," Mitchell said, taking a seat across from him. "Thank you for coming." Velshan raised his pale blue eyes. "I did not come to exchange pleasantries, Ambassador. I came because I need to understand." "Understand what?" "Everything." The alien's voice was tired and confused. 10 years ago, I stood before the Council and declared that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. I believed every word I said. Your history proved it. Your biology proved it. Everything we knew about your species told us that you would be a threat to galactic peace. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Then you built a fleet that should have been impossible. You faced our ships in battle and won. And when you had us at your mercy, when you could have destroyed us completely, you stopped. You helped our wounded. You freed our people. You asked for nothing in return. Mitchell waited in silence. "Why?" Velshan asked. "Why did you show mercy to those who had treated you so badly?" Mitchell leaned back in his chair. He thought about all the things he could say. He thought about the speeches and the politics and the careful words that diplomats were supposed to use. Then he decided to simply tell the truth. "Because that is who we are," he said. "You looked at our wars and saw violence. But you did not see what came after. You did not see how we rebuilt, how we forgave, how we learned from our mistakes and tried to do better. Yes, humans can be cruel. We can be terrible. But we can also be kind. We can love strangers and sacrifice ourselves for people we have never met. We are not one thing or the other. We are both." Velshan was quiet for a long time. "The Concord is falling apart," he finally said. "Many species want to leave and join your alliance. They say that you offer something the Concord never did. What is that?" "Hope." The word came out like a sigh. "The Concord was built on fear. Fear of war, fear of chaos, fear of species like yours. We created rules and restrictions because we were afraid of what might happen if we did not. But you have built something different. You have built a place where anyone can belong, where mistakes can be forgiven, where the future is not controlled by the past." Mitchell nodded. "That is what we wanted. Not to destroy the Concord, but to show that there is another way. A better way." "I was wrong about your people," Velshan said. "I was so certain that I was right, and I was completely wrong. How do I fix that?" "You are here," Mitchell said gently. "That is a start." Later that day, the first anniversary celebration of the Open Alliance was held in the station's Great Hall. Thousands of beings gathered to mark the occasion. Human musicians played songs alongside alien instruments in melodies that had never existed before. Children ran through the crowds, their laughter mixing with dozens of languages. Admiral Daniel Carter stood on a platform at the center of the hall. He was older now, his body tired from years of fighting and building. But his spirit was stronger than ever. A large screen flickered to life behind him, showing the face of Chancellor Marcus Webb. The old leader had passed away 6 months ago, but he had left a recorded message for this moment. "My fellow humans," Webb's voice echoed through the hall, "and my fellow beings of the galaxy. If you are watching this, then we have done it. We have built something new, something beautiful." The crowd fell silent, listening to the words of a man who had refused to accept defeat. They feared what we might become. They tried to cage us before we could prove ourselves. But humanity has never accepted cages. We break them, not to cause harm, but to reach out, to connect, to show the universe what we truly are. Webb smiled on the screen, his eyes filled with pride. We are not perfect. We never will be. But we are capable of greatness when we choose to be. We are capable of mercy and courage and love. That is what I want the galaxy to remember. Not our wars, not our violence, but our ability to grow, to change, to become better than we were before. The recording ended, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then Ashley Torres, now a commander herself, raised her glass. To Chancellor Webb, she said, and to everyone who believed in us. Thousands of voices answered her. Human and alien, young and old. They drank together in memory of those who had made this possible. Carter looked out at the crowd and felt something warm spread through his chest. 10 years ago, they had been rejected and cast out. They had been called monsters and locked away. Now they stood at the center of something wonderful. A young alien child tugged at his sleeve. Carter looked down to see a small creature with big eyes staring up at him. Are you the human who won the battle? The child asked. Carter knelt down to be at eye level. I am one of many who fought that day. We all won together. My mother says humans are brave, the child said. She says you could have hurt everyone, but you chose to be kind instead. Carter smiled. That is the hardest choice anyone can make. But it is always the right one. The child nodded seriously, then ran off to join its friends. Carter stood and looked out the window at the stars. They had barred Earth from their council. They had called humanity unworthy. And in response, humanity had built its own table where everyone was welcome. The stars had never looked brighter.